Hi, my name is Lindsay, and welcome to our PD on incorporating disciplinary literacy instruction into middle school math. Our agenda today, we're going to start out with some welcomes and introductions. And then really, my objective for you today is I want you to be able to leave this PD and go home with an understanding of what disciplinary literacy instruction is and how it affects you. And at the same time, I want you to be able to take some strategies back to your classroom that you can implement as early as tomorrow. So then after that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about what disciplinary literacy instruction is. And I want you to have a quick discussion on just how it affects you as a math teacher. Then we're going to talk about teaching literacy and math, why and how we can do that. And then we're going to go over two strategies today. Our first strategy is going to be looking at essential and non-essential information, and then I have a short activity for you to do with that. And then our second strategy is about disciplinary specific inquiry learning. And there's another activity for you to go ahead and do after that as well. Then we'll have wrap up and questions. So, welcome. My name is Lindsay Gilson. I have been an educator for 11 years. All of my experience has been in elementary education. So the question becomes, why am I here and why am I teaching you about middle school math and disciplinary literacy instruction? Well, I happen to be currently enrolled in my master's program at Cal State Fullerton in reading and literacy, and we have been discussing disciplinary literacy instruction for the last few months. So I am qualified to talk to you about that today. A little personal information about myself. I am a mother of 3. My children range in ages from 2 all the way up to 8 years old. I have been married for about 13 years now, and I enjoy reading. I'm going to have you go ahead and introduce yourselves to somebody else within our PD, and when you introduce yourself, go ahead and give them your name and where you're from, but I want you to tell them something interesting about you, an interesting fact. It could be from the school year, it could be just something that nobody really knows about you. One of my interesting fact that not many people have is that I have taught for 11 years in the same district, but I have never been in the same classroom, nor have I ever taught the same grade consecutively. I keep shifting and I teach kindergarten, then I get shifted to first, then I'll go up to second. Never at the same site, but just a little fun fact about me. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to introduce yourself to those around you and tell them an interesting fact about you. Thanks. I hope you all learned something fun about somebody else today. So let's go ahead and let's talk about what disciplinary instruction, literacy instruction really is. According to Zygros' Code, disciplinary literacy instruction, from now on known as DLI, is teaching students how to use reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills to critically think about a discipline or core subject in a meaningful way. In other words, it's about teaching the process and the process of teaching students how to think like a mathematician in our case, or a scientist or a historian, and just helping them understand how an expert processes things and how they do it, and how those processes can influence our own learning about a subject. It's also using technology to read, write, and communicate with others within our discipline, and just encouraging us to do more reading and writing within our core subjects. So I want you to go ahead and I want you to talk to those people around you that you just introduced yourself to. And I want you to take a minute and I want you to explain how this is important to you. How is bringing in reading and writing important to you as a middle school math teacher? How is that going to change your instruction? I'll give you just a minute to talk about that. All right. So I heard some really great discussions going on, and it sounds like many of you feel that your job is to teach isn't necessarily to teach reading and writing, but we're going to talk about how we can kind of incorporate that into what you're already doing without you having to sit down with a novel and trying to find things that have to do with math. So I hope to answer some of your questions and concerns today. So if we talk about disciplinary literacy instruction, or DLI, in math, why? Why do we need to teach reading and writing? Well, one of the most important reasons is as a mathematician, we know this. We want our students to be able to read and comprehend the problems that they are solving within our subject. So how are we going to do that? If you look over here, we are going to break down problems into smaller parts and look for essential and non-essential information. It has something to do with our first strategy that I'm going to teach you. Then we're also going to go ahead and we are going to talk about that we have these 21st century skills that require students to apply their knowledge to real life situations. So how do they do that? Well, I'm going to help you learn and think about how to design disciplinary specific inquiry projects that your students can do that will bring real life situations to life, and that they can solve these problems and see that math is more than just doing it out of a textbook. We're also going to talk about how important it is to have direct instruction, especially the gradual release of responsibility model, to help you as you are teaching your students these strategies. All right, so let's go ahead and move this again. Go right down here. Sorry about that. Go over here. Okay, there we go. Found a good spot. So we're going to talk about determining essential and non-essential information. So I'm going to give you guys a problem, and I want you to tell me what you think we would do. So Nancy, who lives in Los Angeles, wants to send a package to her sister in Miami. It is approximately 2,348 miles from Los Angeles to Miami. The package contains a picture that she drew, some cookies that she made, and a book that she thinks her sister would like. The package weighs 3.5 pounds and is 12 inches by 6 inches by 8 inches big. The company has a special that any size box will be sent for $11.25 for the first pound and $6.25 for each additional pound or portion of a pound. How much will it cost for Nancy to send her package? Pretty basic question that we're asking our students. Lots of information there though, right? And if we think about it, our middle school students are going to get tired. They're going to get bogged down in some of that essential, non-essential information. So why is it important that we teach them this strategy? One of the things that we've noticed over time is that the textbooks have really started taking out some of this non-essential stuff and basically just giving the kids the essential information that they need. It's not making them think harder. It's not rigorous. It's not making them deal with these real life applications. It's kind of just giving them the processing themselves. So we want to teach them how to go in and break these problems down. So I want you to think that if this was a problem and I handed it to you and you were all mathematicians, what is it that a mathematician does? What's the first step? What are you going to look for within this? What is your process as a mathematician that you would be doing? So I want you to think about that for a minute. And really, basically, what we all know is that you would be going through the math problem and you would be figuring out what do you need to know, what's essential, and what don't you need to know, what's non-essential. Okay, so in order to teach that, I'm going to use you guys as my class of 7th graders, and I'm going to show you how we would go through and teach this strategy of determining what is essential and non-essential in this problem. So let's talk. We read the problem. Now, I would tell my students that we are going to read this problem multiple times. See, reading and math. So we're going to take it and we're going to take this problem and we're going to break it down into pieces, and in order to do that we need to read it multiple times so that we have a good understanding and comprehension of what's happening. So we would read through that problem the very first time, and then I would ask students, what is the question? What are we looking for? And hopefully they would be able to point out how much it will cost for Nancy to send her package. Now, the first time we would go through something like this, I would definitely be doing this all on my own, thinking through it on my own. Students can interject and, of course, be part of the conversation, but I really would be relying on my own processing and thinking through and out loud my processing. So I would say, okay, I'm going to read this problem. And then as I read it, I would be saying, okay, now what's the next step? Okay, I need to think about what the essential problem is, or what the problem is, and what is it asking me. Now what do I need to do? Now I need to read back and find out what information is going to help me figure out this problem. So as I read through it the second time, I might see that it seems like a lot of this information is really important. It talks about how far away it is. It talks about what's in the package, might not be as important to how much it's going to cost. It talks about the package weight and its size, and then it talks about how this company is going to send it, and that they're just looking at weight. So now I know that essentially I'm looking for that essential information about weight. So I can take all of that information and I can put it in my essential information area, and then anything that doesn't really apply, I'm going to stick over here in my non-essential information. So I'm going to show you what that would look like. You do have this handout on your tables. There is an example that is already pre-filled out. That's what we're going over right now. You also are going to have a couple of blank ones that we're going to use in a few minutes, and as one for you to take back with you into your classroom. So let's look at what that looks like when we have our information put into its pieces. So really, I said that the essential information is that the package was 3.5 pounds. The first pound is going to cost $11.25, and then an additional poundage is going to calculate out at $6.25 per pound, or whatever portion of the pound is there. My non-essential information was that I didn't really need to know how close it was or how far away Miami was from Los Angeles. The size of the package did not matter in this instance, so that goes in non-essential. And the package containment of the picture, cookies, and book, I didn't need to know about that. That was just added information in there to that I didn't really need to know. So I'm going to break this problem down myself now, and I'm going to write it in my own words. So knowing that I need to know what the cost was, I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to show, when I write it myself, that there's the cost. And I can basically just take my essential information that's here, and you're going to show your students this. You're going to take your basic information, you're going to rewrite it into a problem. So I know I had 3.5 pounds. The first pound cost $11.25. So no matter what, I'm going to have 1 pound at $11.25. I'm going to add that to the additional weight. So I take that 1 pound, subtract it from 3.5, get 2.5, and then that goes to $6.25. So I'm going to multiply those two together, add it up, and I'm going to get my total. So this, as you can see, the strategy is really good to helping students break it down, but also to be able to understand how they got to the problem and what they're really solving for. So what I'm going to have you do for me is you are going to go to your page, or on your desk you have a blank copy, and what I would like for you to do is you are going to now do an activity that you are going to fill out that form, and you are going to look through your TEs that I know you brought today and find a problem that your students would encounter and write that problem down. Now, for my class, if this was my class, what I would do is I would maybe pre-type up it multiple times on a piece of paper and then copy that and then cut that out and have my students glue that onto the problem page, just so that I don't have to reprint this paper out differently each time. And then it also saves time on making students write the problem, and it gives them more time to just look at that essential and non-essential information. So go ahead and find your blank form, and you will spend some time. I'll give you about 10 minutes that you get to work through finding the problem and then pretending like you're your student and putting that essential and non-essential information, and then talking with those around you as to how you think you can incorporate this in your classroom. Okay.